Namrata, we can introduce Sophia.
Hi, this is Namrata. I'm here to introduce Sofia. So she is a rising senior at Advanced School of Studies in Miami, Florida. Um, Talking about Sophia, I don't know what all she have on her plate right now. She just completed her internship at NASA. She is a rising senior, but she is working on nanomaterial and how it will help in glioblastoma in University of Miami. And then she has like fascination. She loves all these arts and history. So when she came to me, she was like, when I spoke to Ira, I thought, oh, we're going to do something related to nanoparticle in the medical research. But what ended up was like nanomaterial in preservation of all these historical artifacts. And she was like, do you have background? And interestingly, my undergraduate research was in nanoparticle and it's affecting neurite outgrowth in neurodegeneration. So it was perfect marriage, but it was like I learned a lot from her about artifacts. So I don't know how much I taught her, but I sure did learn a lot. And when we completed the project, she was like, what I'm gonna do next. So usually when I complete the project, I will ask, are you gonna go with this project? And she was like, what do you think I should do? I was like, if you go to college and end up in any chemistry or bio or physics lab who have nanoparticles, you can for sure pursue this further down the road. So see, like as I told you, see, I always am amazed by all the mentee I am getting, but this time it was just mind-boggling for me. It's such a smart one. So I can't wait for her to present her work right now. So Sophia, take it away.
All right. Well, thank you so much. My name is Sophia. As Namrata said, I am a senior in high school and I live in Miami, Florida. Next slide, please. So about my mentor, she's a postdoctoral research fellow at the Cincinnati Children's Hospital Medical Center. Her research is focused on epigenetics and the neurological mechanisms that lead to pain caused by NF1. She's from Nepal and makes a very good chai. And she also loves spending her time watching DC and MCU movies and listening to AC/DC. Next slide, please. So my project, I wrote a blog slash informational article about nanomaterials and historical conservation. I chose this topic because, while I'm really interested in the intersection between history and science, as was previously stated, I have a bit of a background with nanomaterials. So I did a little research in micrometeorites, so well, at least materials at the smaller scale. And my research at the University of Miami involves carbon dots, which are just very, very small carbon particles, practically. So within this project, I learned a lot about nanomaterials, archaeological chemistry, and environmental chemistry. Next slide, please. So a bit of a background on nanomaterials, since I'm fairly aware that many people do not know much about nanomaterials. So they are substances that have at least one dimension that measures less than 100 nanometers. And they have different properties from their normal slash larger size counterparts, such as a high reactivity and a high strength weight ratio. And they're commonly used as drug delivery systems and improving strength of materials. And within conservation, some of their unique properties include hydrophobicity, which basically just means that they repel water. And they're also antimicrobial, which means that they kill bacteria. So that are like magnesium oxide particles, gold and silver, and silicon dioxide. Next, please. So these are some of the main review articles I read as part of my research. I read about nanomaterials used in remediation of environmental pollutants, prevention of the degradation of artifacts that especially are outside and can't be moved inside is very important as well. And I also read about nanomaterials used in conservation and restoration, again, just to learn about the different techniques used for different kinds of materials within artifacts. Next slide, please. So I made a little infographic kind of depicting the different kinds of nanoparticles and nanomaterials used within conservation based on the different materials that artifacts are made of. Every picture that you see here, I'll add that I took myself. So yeah, so for example, paper and metal use nanotubes, which are practically just very, very small and thin tubes made out of nanoparticles. Wood and paper are also used by nanoparticles. And it really just depends on the porosity of the material or how able it is to hold, like a polymer or resin of some sort, to which depends on which nanomaterial is used on it. Next slide, please. So research on nanoparticles, I visited museums. I was very fortunate to be able to visit museums across the world in Miami, Argentina, and Germany. And after looking at all the artifacts that are on display everywhere, I decided to, on top of researching the nanomaterials themselves, see how much people knew about nanomaterials. So next slide, please. Yeah, so I decided to run a survey. So before we get into the survey, I wanted to talk a bit about the different nanomaterials that are actually used. So paper, it can acidify really quickly with atmospheric humidity. So magnesium oxide neutralizes the acid and prevents it from being degraded further. And it's also antifungal. So again, it kills fungus and it can really prevent a lot of that degradation from mold or fungus that grows on paper from improper storage or environmental concerns. Again, wood, another organic material. It's also, really, it can be degraded by a myriad factors such as termites. So zinc oxide particles are cytotoxic, which means that they kill cells, and they were shown to largely kill many termites. Titanium dioxide also is photocatalytic, which means that it converts harmful compounds that would otherwise degrade it into harmless compounds. And it can also help the wood be UV resistant, so it won't change color under the sun. With stone, especially with statues or buildings, hydroxyapatite, which is a calcium mineral, can help fortify them by creating calcium phosphates within the materials themselves, so fortifying them in situ or directly within the structure. And again, fungicidal properties are very important to this. And finally, metal, carbon nanotubes, again, very small tubes, can be used to preserve metal based on their properties such as hydrophobicity, elasticity, and self-cleaning, which means that pollutants won't stick on them much. Next slide, please. Can you click again, please? So after running the survey, my school didn't have an institutional review board, which basically is a group that okays surveys that are to be sent out. So I played it with my counselor. She said it was fine, and I ran an informal survey among my peers. So over 80% of people that I surveyed were not aware of nanoparticles. Next slide, please. Again, over half of them, or almost half of them, answer that a nanoparticle is a particle smaller than an atom, which really shows the lack of awareness that there is about nanoparticles. Next slide, please. And again, over almost 70% of people surveyed do not go to museums either, not at all, or not very often. Going to museums is very important to promote cultural awareness and just general knowledge about the world around us. Next slide, please. But regardless of this lack of awareness of nanoparticles and museum going, many people are hopeful about their usage in preserving artifacts. So over 90% of people answer that artifacts can be preserved using nanoparticles. Next slide, please. So based on the data collected, as I said, people are pretty unaware about the impact of nanomaterials, but they're hopeful about their applications, not only within historical conservation, but across the scientific world. This is a very new technology that can be used to improve what already exists, and it is very important to promote the development of them, awareness, and research of them. Next slide, please. So working with Magic was great. I loved being able to collaborate with an expert in her field. Namrata was an incredible resource. She was just a wealth of knowledge that she also gave me perspectives that I wouldn't have been able to reach myself with the research I conducted. One of the challenges I did face was understanding some of the scholarly jargon within the articles and review papers I read, but continuing to research did allow it to continue smoothly. Next slide, please. So yeah, I just like to thank everyone that's part of Magic, Ira, Aline, Namrata, everyone at Get Magic, and everyone who took my survey. This would not have been possible without you guys. So yes, thank you.
Good job, Sophia. It's such a unique perspective and take on this. Yeah, we have any questions from the audience?
I don't have any questions, but I just want to say fantastic job. That was really phenomenal.
Thank you.
I have a little one listening and she said the same back there. Great job.
Yeah, I also want, I'm like, this is just a phenomenal amalgamation of topics. I never thought that you'd use nanoparticles to, for a topic like this. So it only takes somebody who's thinking out of the box to do something like this. So, and I learned a lot. So thank you so much for this. I'm just floored. No questions.
Thank you so much.
I have a question, Sophia, although I'm your mentor. For your survey question, when they said that they have hope for nanoparticles, do you think they were biased just because you already asked them what is nanoparticles?
That is definitely a factor that should be considered when analyzing that data. Again, that was one of the final questions of that survey, so they were probably influenced based on the other questions. But regardless of that, I mean, when presented with a topic like a new topic such as nanoparticles, which there's not much research in them yet, so there's so much probability and possibility for what can be done with them. So I feel like, and though it might be a bit biased, I feel like it still holds true.
Yeah, there's one great side effect of this survey. They didn't know about it and now they do. They'll hopefully look it up. So I think really great outcome.